Hi, Alistair. Today we're going to look at a special word, which is especialmente, right? And we need to look at this word because in Spanish, it can be used in a variety of different contexts, but in English, we have two separate words, don't we? And it's kind of be a little bit confusing. So that's what we thought we would discuss very, very quickly.
Yeah, well, I think Spanish speakers would tend to always, I think, in most cases, use especially, because it's almost identical to the Spanish word, no? Especialmente, especially.
Yeah.
So it's the word that would come to mind quickest. And from a pronunciation point of view, they're very similar, no? So they've got this e sound that is common in Spanish with words like España, for example. So in English is Spain. It begins with a s sound, and Spanish speakers tend to put that Spain, like an extra sound, but especially has the sound in English. So very easy for a Spanish speaker, no problem.
Yeah.
Especialmente, especially.
Exactly.
So that's the one they tend to use always or most of the time. What's the problem? Well, in English we have two words which mean especialmente.
That's right, exactly. So, yeah, that is the key, let's say, default position is the whole idea of saying especially. Probably most Spanish speakers would use especially most of the time. They kind of feel very comfortable with that pronunciation, right? Because there are many words in Spanish actually sound like that, as you mentioned, like España, no?
Estación.
Lots of different,
Estrella.
many different words. So it's going to be natural. That word is going to be natural. So let's talk about what that word actually means then, just so that we have a differentiation between especially and specially. So what does especially mean exactly?
Well, we could begin with an example. I could ask you, Daniel, do you like fruit?
I do like fruit. I think it's a very healthy type of food. So I try to eat as much fruit as I possibly can. Yes.
Okay. And do you, have a favorite type of fruit that you prefer eating?
I think probably bananas are probably my favorite. It's kind of just a very easy snack, basically. Yeah.
Okay. So, I also like fruit, especially strawberries and kiwis, maybe.
Okay.
That would be.
Okay.
So in that case, I've said, I like fruit in general, but especialmente. So it could mean sobre todo.
Yeah.
You could use in Spanish. In English, you could say above all, sobre todo.
Yeah.
I like fruit. Above all, strawberries and kiwis.
Yeah.
But we can also use especially in that case.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's one meaning, no? Sobre todo.
Sobre todo, exactly. Yeah. So especially, I especially like bananas, for example, and you like especially.
Oh, you could say it that way. I especially like bananas.
Yeah.
So I like fruit, especially bananas.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. So those is kind of like a relatively easy, right? People will think of that word, they'll be able to pronounce it, no problems at all. But then they suddenly come up against a word where they say, but there's an alternative here, and I don't know which one to use, because I can see that in English you've got especially, and you also have specially, right?
Yeah, just to be difficult as it's English, because it gives us work as English teachers.
Yeah.
Why do we need two? Well, good question, but we do have two, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly right.
One almost identical to the Spanish word, so that's the easy one.
Yeah.
And that's the one we use more commonly.
Yes.
So, in fact, if a Spanish speaker is not sure which one to use and they go for the especially, which they probably would, probably 80% of the time they're probably going to be correct, fortunately.
Yeah.
However, what's the problem? We have this other word, especially, more difficult to pronounce because you've got to begin with the s sound.
Absolutely.
So, specially.
Yeah.
And it has a slightly different meaning or different use, shall we say.
That's right.
So can you, I don't know, when would you use specially?
Well, I think it's very much related to the idea of, in a way you could think about it and related to training, specialist training, or even like if you go to the hospital, you see lots of specialists because they are kind of like are focused on one particular element of health, right? You might have a heart specialist, a cancer specialist, right? So they specialize in something specifically, right?
Yeah. So not all doctors are heart specialists.
That's right.
It is a speciality. They specialize in that particular area of medicine.
That's right.
So they are specially trained to deal with heart problems or cancer patients, for example, but they're not especially.
No.
So we wouldn't use especially in that
No.
in that case.
No. Exactly.
Or another example, something could be, it's like customized. So if you're talking about obviously in this case, we're talking about doctors having a particular specialism or speciality.
Yeah.
But it could also be that something is specially made or specially designed or specially manufactured for a particular use.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, for example, I know if you're Paul McCartney, for example, is a left-handed, he plays the guitar and left-handed.
Right.
So therefore, he could use, in fact, I think he does, a left-handed guitar.
Right, exactly.
So that is specially made, specially designed, specially manufactured for people who are left-handed. So not all guitars are left-handed. Most of them are right-handed. Mm-hmm. So that is specially made, specially designed.
Yeah.
So it has a particular function or a particular use.
Yeah. Yeah. A stadium, for example, like a football stadium may be specially designed to create a certain type of atmosphere, for example, as well. Yeah. There are many stadiums around the world that are specially constructed to create a really intimate atmosphere or
for the acoustics.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Particular acoustics to create more, a better atmosphere, absolutely. As you say.
Yeah. So anything that's
specially
done,
made, specially designed.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that is kind of like, really looked at in detail, as you say, sort of customized, there you could use special, so I think that's kind of like the main differences between the two, right? Really, you kind of just like have to get an idea of whether, what the definitions are and what the differences are between the two, and kind of make it clear in your mind what you're going to use each one for, right? As you said, most of the time it will be especially because, it's much more common, right? But
yeah, well, especially has another meaning we didn't mention, and this is another reason why it would be more commonly used. Which would be like particularly, so particularmente. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, an example could be we live in Madrid. In Madrid, the metro is always busy, but particularly, so especially in the morning,
right.
Early in the morning in the rush hour, la hora punta, no?
Yeah.
And in the evening rush hour. So that's when it's especially busy or especially crowded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can use it in that sense. So as you've got the sobre todo and particularmente, these are very common uses. And therefore, choosing the especially, you're going to be correct. Yeah. But however, as we just mentioned, you're not always going to be correct. It depends what you want to say.
Exactly.
So if you want to talk about the doctor being specially trained in heart surgery, we don't use especially in that case.
Yeah.
So there's where you can, a Spanish speaker could make a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay, so I think we've covered that. Specially and especially. Thank you very much, Alistair. Really great, as usual. And we'll be back soon with a new video. All right? Okay. Bye. See you then. Bye.
Cheers.